how many people here said that to them a good school includes a good principal? Basic, right? You said good principal. Did anyone here say great teachers? I'll say great teachers. How? Yeah. What did you say? Parents. So great. Parental involvement. Did anybody here say a great STEAM program? Science, technology, engineer, arts, math. Anybody? Okay. Be honest now. I know the arts is very important, right? Did anyone here, like me, say a helicopter pad on the top of your school? Anybody? There we go. See, just like her, I believe in parent power that much that I really believe in the power of parents that if we wanted a helicopter pad on top of our schools, we could have a helicopter pad on top of our schools. Because parent power translates not only in our school system, but also into the political realm. And so we talking about we have 500 parents, 1,000 parents in the school community who want a helicopter pad, and if you don't give it to us, you're not going to be reelected. We have a helicopter pad, y'all. All right? So yeah, so when I talk about parent power, I'll make sure I'm going to put this in context, that for me, parents in this conversation includes the greater community at large who take the time to invest in the children, right? So apparently it's not the traditional, maybe mom and dad, but really anybody in that community who takes time to invest in children. So when I talk about parent, that's who I'm, hit my chest. That's who I'm referring to, okay? So this evening, we're gonna take a few minutes to really go over some of the experiences that I've had as being a parent at Waverly, trying to organize around our school. I'll also recall some of the organizing successes that the people before me had in organizing to get us a new school building. And then I'll talk about this idea and vision that I shared with Rebecca and others of how we can build this parent network across Baltimore City. And really a network that can be transformative and really getting things done in Baltimore City. All right? So if any time, I tend to talk fast. My wife is here, she's been told to do this. But if you see me talking too fast, raise your hand, okay, and I'll stop. On your chairs, there were index cards. Those cards are for questions. We're gonna take it, if you have a question, write it down towards the end. We'll take those questions and make sure we're not being repetitive and start having a conversation around your questions, okay? So in 2003, I was a senior at Northern High School. It was called W.B. Du Bois. That was the first year. I was a senior there, and the school board had made a decision to take Waverly Elementary School and turn it into Waverly Elementary Middle School, all right? So a lot of parents at that time, the zone school for the middle schoolers, anybody know what the zone school was? Yeah, it was Roland Park. So now we didn't have all the students that were going to Roland Park had to stay at Waverly. And so what happened next? When you have children at an elementary school and they stay at the same school building, what's going to happen? Overcrowding. This school quickly became overcrowded, and parents were like, we can't have this. So they opened up the old Venable building. If you know anything about Waverly, there's a school back in the day, across the street called Venable. So they opened that school up and turned it into Waverly Middle School. But that wasn't enough space either. So what did they do? They took an old trailer and put it on the side of the building and put the kids in the trailer. So parents, community members were like, they had a decision to make, like, what does a great school in the Waverly community look like? Like, what does this look like? Are we gonna settle for this? Are we gonna begin to challenge the system? Are we gonna begin to organize? Like, what does it look like for us to have a school in our community, right? So what are some of the things you all would do if this was happening, man? What would you do? If your children were subjected to a trailer and they were, you. So I'm cross-eyed, y'all, okay? If you were subjected to a trailer, what would you do?
If they, well, I think I would find a way. So my daughter's going to hear but
You're the best person to give an example then.
I would find a way to communicate with parents and get a meeting.
Get a meeting. Anybody else have something they would do? So I'm gonna tell you what would happen in Waverly. Yeah, what would you do, ma'am?
My children were at Waverly.
Okay, you can get up here and tell the story. Okay.
And parents got together because the children in the dead of winter had to leave the trailer to go into the building. Well, this is the old second Waverly. Had to leave the trailer to go into the main building to use the restroom. and we just feel that it's unacceptable. But I have to tell you that it took a long time for the district.
You get ahead of my story now. Listen, but when you're there, you know the story. Just like she said, parents didn't just stand for that. Parents began to organize. Community members began to organize. Nonprofits began to organize. Religious organizations all came to organize. In our district, we're blessed to have what is known to be the standard for community organizers in the city council, Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark. She got involved. We have Delegate Maggie McIntosh, Senator Joan Carter Conway in our district. Everyone got involved and all made a decision that the best school or the best school for WAVE in our community, the best outcome was a brand new school building for our school. So I would love to, like she said, to say, hey, after 1 year of organizing and everybody sitting around talking and saying, hey, we need a new school. The next year, 2004, we got a new school building. That didn't happen. General Assembly after General Assembly, it took until 2007, 4 years went past before any momentum began to build on this project, right? We're told time after time again that that project is not at the top of our list here in the General Assembly. It wasn't until Dr. Alonzo had come in 2007 and Councilwoman Clark said, hey, you promised to be part of this project and we want you to help us support it. And so from there, Dr. Alonzo got involved and the district got involved. In 2008, it finally got funding for this project. Am I saying that right? Somebody check me now. Karen just walked in. But they got funding for the project. So you fast forward 2012, they didn't break ground on the school until 2012. The school didn't open until 2014. So over a decade of organizing before the school even opened. And if you know anything about Baltimore right now, just last week we opened 5 new schools last week, right? This project at Waverly predates the 21st Century School Program. So there wasn't no $1 billion, $1.2 billion of funding out there waiting to fund schools. These were community organizers, these were community members who literally had enough of seeing their children walk in the wintertime to go inside to use the bathroom and to begin to organize. And so I use this story, I see Karen DeCamp, she was part of that movement of building, getting Waverly built. So when I think about that story, I use that story as an example because it really shows when parents, community members, political people, when everybody really comes on the same page and decide the very smallest detail of what they want to get done, there's nothing stopping it, especially in Baltimore City, right? Nothing stops that. So here we go, let's fast forward to 2014-ish. We finally, me and my wife decided to move to Waverly. I just got out of the Army and we said, hey, where are we gonna move with our own family, right? I had grown up in Waverly. I had my brothers and niece all went to Waverly Elementary School. And I told my wife I wanted to move back to that community because I believed that it was a good community. It shaped me. It had given me some character, charisma, right? I felt as though it can give back to our, we can give back. Our children can really benefit from this experience. My wife was from Catonsville. She wasn't really excited about moving to East Baltimore at all. And so I had to really sell her on the idea of the YMCA, its proximity to Morgan State, Lake Montebello. I'm also the second vice president at Edmond Gardens Lakeside. If you're looking to move in our neighborhood, we have some homes for sale. But we have a lot of amenities in our neighborhood that really made Waverly an attractive place to move back to. So we moved back there, we enrolled our children to school, we waited for the first day of school. It was a little brighter outside on the first day of school, the grass was a little greener, and then we walked into the school building, we had walked into the twilight zone, right? My wife and I had really, at that moment, understood that a brand new $25 million building didn't mean what? It didn't mean the climate and culture would change inside the school. It took more work. So it took us time to say, hey, we had advocates who did the work of getting us the new building. We need another generation of advocates who are going to help build out the climate and culture and set the standard for what it means to be a student or a family member or a teacher, even a principal at Waverly. And I say principal last because I'll get there. So we got to the school. We saw that we needed a. So yeah, I'm sorry. We started the climate and culture was definitely something that needed to be worked on. And so immediately, my wife and I, we signed up for the PTO, Parent-Teacher Organization. We signed up to get involved. Anybody know the difference between a PTA and a PTO? I'm gonna answer her. Yes, ma'am.
Well, the PTA is a national organization, and you have rules and regulations. The PTO is not a national organization. I think you can do a little bit more what you want. That's the part that I'm familiar with.
Pretty much it. I mean, it gives you the autonomy to really make your own rules and guidelines what's relative to your school and your situation. Want to add something to it?
PTA as well. And I say that because PTAs are very autonomous in schools if they function where they're supposed to function. And a PTA gives you the opportunity to have the organization in each school, the opportunity to have your local PTA council and your support, your state and your federal as your support. So whatever your school would need, whatever your teacher would need, training, the workshops, it's all free and it's all provided basically by your state.
What's your name, Mel? Miss Saturo. Me and you gonna have a big debate about PTA versus PTO after this, all right? So no. You're right. No doubt, you're right. And so we got involved with the PTO. We said we're gonna go to our school. Uh-oh. This is Trish now. I'm not asking y'all no more questions, okay? Go ahead, Trish.
When you belong to a PTA, your numbers of your PTA and your local school community are added to the city numbers of PTA voice, then they're added then to the state voice, and they're added to the federal voice. So when somebody goes to argue with Betsy DeVos and says the national PTA does not stand for X, Y, and Z, you, Joe, if you belong to your PTA, your voice is being heard by on the national level, state.
Trish, I love you to death, Trish. We can all have this conversation after it, all right? So I know, I understand, trust me. We have this debate all the time. But either way, we said we're going to get involved with our local school's PTO. So we go to the PTO meeting, we bring out $5 to be a member, and this was not the woman's welcome I've received ever. It was like I had walked into, walked into a wrong building, okay? And I couldn't understand why this was the sentiment walking into a room that was supposed to be organizing parents of the school. What was the divide that was happening? And so I didn't come back. My wife kept on going to meetings throughout the school year. I went home and said, call me when that lady leaves, okay? But it was to a volunteer at the school who said, hey, he called us at during the summertime of the next school year and said, hey, we're having elections at our school and we want you guys to come out because you're members, you paid your $5. So my wife had been nominated for president of the PTO, and I was there to support her. We took the time to really go over what her agenda would be and how she would be transformative and address climate and culture. And then so we show up to the PTO meeting, and everyone who else had been nominated gets up and they start talking. They all telling how they want to have the best fundraiser, the best bake sale, and they want to do give the kids candy all day long, right? And then my wife gets up and says the same thing, right? And I'm like, hold up, we just talked about this. So I raised my hand and say, hey, can I say something real fast? Do you mind if I say something? Not on the agenda, can I say something? And so I took the time to say, does anybody see the broken windows in front of the school? Does anybody see the letters missing in front of the school? And anybody see the trash in the hallways? And everybody's like, yeah, we saw it, but we didn't know how that relates to the climate and culture of the school. Listen, I'm not here to be president or anything like that, but we need to be talking about those issues and how do we change our schools, right? So they go back to ballot, and lo and behold, everybody except for one person votes for me president. Can you imagine who the one person was? Right, so I became the PTO president at the school. And so we began to figure out how do we get community back involved in our school. We had just come off the heels of getting a brand new school building built. How do we get those people back inside of Waverly to be part of the climate and culture initiative, if you will? And so what we did was we took our tent. We had a little pop-up tent. We went to different corners in our community, set the tent up on an afternoon, evening like this, and just stood there and waited for people to come out and talk to them about this, talk to them about Waverly. What had been their experiences at Waverly? Were they involved? Why had they taken their children out of Waverly? What things they want to see at Waverly? Waverly is a community school. What programming do you want to see at Waverly? So we did this on all corners. And then we went back and said, okay, we haven't reached everybody. Let's go door to door. So we started knocking on doors. We said, what do you know about this school across the street? We met this one guy, Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, he lives right across the street from Waverly and hates the building. He hates the building. He hates the way it was designed. He doesn't have a parking lot. It holds up traffic every morning. When they have special events, he don't get no notice. He hates the school building. However, Mr. Scott is a big supporter of PTO. Why is Mr. Scott a supporter of PTO? Because he believes that his voice is being heard as we organize around how do we address issues, right? So now we have a PTO that's reaching out to other parents in the community, other community members, other faith-based organizations, nonprofits. And so we start to see that now we've got input. What do we do with this input? So after the summer ends, a week before the summer ends, we get notification that the principal we had been working with had been reassigned. So all the work we had done had gone down the drain, because now we have to work with a new principal who may not believe in what we just did and want to start over, right? So then we began to learn that it seemed like a setback, but it really was an opportunity to learn what resources and mechanisms the district had to allow for input into who would be the next principal at Waverly. How many people here know that when a principal vacates that spot, there's something called a principal selection process happens? How many people here have participated in one, right? And so we learned that there was a principal selection process, that we could be part of that, where our voices could be heard. But how many people knew that we didn't know that you needed a school family council? Who know about the school family council? We have a handout around here. We learned very fast that the school family council was the engine, really the board, if you will, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. You know, it was really the engine behind the school. Like, this is a place where we can talk about academic goals and everything, budgets. This is a place where parents, community members can really come in and get into those issues, those details of how to operate your school. But I had never heard of school family council until we hit this crisis moment, right? So we knew that we needed a new principal, but before we can get a new principal, we needed a what? We needed a school family council, right? And so before we get a school family council, we need what? People. We need people who are interested in being part of that school family council. And so what we did was we said, let's make this an issue. Let's go out to parents and let them know we had a principal, y'all, but see me offline about that principal. We had a principal, but let's make this urgent that we need a new principal at our school, right? And so how do we organize around getting a new principal at our school? We began to host meetings. This is outside of the school family council process. We said we're going to host our own meetings to really identify characteristics of what our next principal should look like. We began to talk about, we created what was called the Waverly Manifesto. Anybody heard of that? We created a Waverly Manifesto where we really detailed on what it meant to be a Waverly parent, a Waverly student, a Waverly community member inside the school, a Waverly principal, Waverly teacher. We went into details of what we wanted to see at our school, right? And then we still have a document. And so we began to organize and build out that framework. And so by the time came to pick a principal, I wasn't talking on behalf of Joe Kane or what I wanted to see in a principal. I was speaking with the voice of literally our school community, not just our parents, but the same community that helped build the school had given input into what the next principal should look like. And so for us, that was an opportunity to say, hey, don't just bring anybody to us. You better bring us some quality people that we can really buy into and believe in what's happening here at Waverly. Now, we do have a new principal there, love her to death, Dr. Tanya Green, come check her out, who understands that we want a principal who understands what community schools are, who understands the value and the history of a community like Waverly and the surrounding community. We wanted a principal who really understood that children come first, who had the ability to really put blinders on when it came to all the politics happening around her. And so I believe we got that in our principal. And so for us, this process of how do we get a new principal, how do we organize our community, was a great opportunity to learn the different mechanisms within the school system that allows us to give for input, you know? A lot of times we get bogged down. How many people here remember Heatgate last January? What is January, right? A lot of times we were bombarded with like just our opinion as opposed to information. And so how many of us like really understood like how many understood about the budget process and how schools have been underfunded, right? But if you had just saw kids with pictures and coats on, you're like, oh my goodness, it's so sad. But we need to be not reactive, but what? Preventive. We need to be organized before these things happen. And so I'm transitioning to the next phase here, but this is where we're talking about the umbrella, where we can build the network of parents who are informed about how things happen in Baltimore City Public Schools and how we can make changes in Baltimore City Public Schools with those tools, right? And so when we talk about a network of parents who are informed about issues, myself, how I got involved in PCAB, I understood that the Parent Community Advisory Board, I understood that some of the issues that we were dealing with at our school they weren't things that the principal could do. For example, how many people would love to host something at their school every weekend or gain access to their school or have a key to their school? Because it's a community school, we should be able to go in and out of school anytime, right? That's me. I feel like this is our community school. But the principal is held back by what? Policy. There are policies that prevent her from just handing over the keys to me. But because we're under a community school concept in Baltimore, right, there are ways that we can address policy and start to change policy to how we can utilize our schools. So for example, this past Tuesday at the policy meeting, they introduced a change that would allow to make it easier for community members to use the schools, right? But how many of us are tracking those policies? That's what PCAB is for, the Parent Community Advisory Board. Those spaces allow us to track policy, give input on policy, give feedback. And I even told them, I said, and I heard the policy, like I don't agree with I don't agree with the way you guys worded it, but now instead of us just not agreeing, we have a platform to give feedback on how what type of changes we should make. So I'm pretty sure in the future, you're going to be seeing some meetings with PCAB talking about this policy and how we give input and what changes that we can really make towards that policy in particular. So as I kind of wrap up here and get to your questions, the biggest takeaways for me is that there are entities and spaces inside Baltimore City Public Schools that allow and really want parents and community members to get involved. It just requires us to spend some time with Ms. Trueheart to really learn what those spaces are and really organize around those efforts. And without that really organizing, and I will be honest, some people have really benefited from the organizing around these systems. Should I go there? Yeah. So, yeah, I'll go there and I'll wrap up here. So there are some schools in our city. Anybody here goes as a member or go to Federal Hill Prep? Anybody? All right. I'm pretty sure they won't mind me talking about them. It's a good school, right? But they have benefited from like understanding the policies and the resources within the school to make sure that school is really a standard school, right? And there's no reason no school in Baltimore City can't be quote unquote, not saying we need to be Federal Hill Prep, but there's no reason a school cannot have MAC resources given by Baltimore City. Does that make sense? All right. What do I mean? What do I mean? So let me ask you this. So here we go. I'm not going to say what school it is. There's a school in Baltimore City that has a liquor license. A liquor license. Why do they need a liquor license, right? This school has a liquor license because their annual fundraiser, people like to drink beer, they like to raise money and so forth. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but my point is that when you have organized parents, these are the type of things you can get done with the organized parent group, okay? Not saying we're not looking for a liquor license at Waverly. We're trying to get rid of liquor stores. My point is that parent power allows you to do things you never heard of, like a liquor license. And that benefits them because their fundraiser brings in $50,000 a year, that one fundraiser.
I just want to jump in for a second. If you all have been collecting questions in your head and you want to write them on cards, you can sort of pass them down the aisle.
Yeah. 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 And so I'm wrapping this up here for the last time. But if we really, my point is that if we really organize, we've benefited from really taking the time to understand different policies in Baltimore City schools and different mechanisms and really exercise them. And as a result, we built relations with the Family and Community Engagement Office where, you know, we have issues, we run to them and say, hey, how do we fix this, how do we address this, as opposed to just really going on Facebook and venting, you know. We had issues with a policy or something, or nobody's responding to our emails, we go to the school board meeting and talk to somebody, you know. My point is that there are mechanisms available as long as we organize effectively around using those resources. All right. So I'm gonna stop there and then take y'all questions and we can have a conversation about this.
We've covered the audience with other wise people. So there's folks from community engagement. I would say your name.
Demetria from Family and Community Engagement.
So ask any kind of question you want to ask about parent power. So there's district folks in the room, there's lots of parents in the room. Any questions you have?
So I noticed that there are cards over on the table for volunteers. So I'm assuming this is for volunteers at city school headquarters, and if that is the case, like what would be the scope of the volunteer?
Well, fortunately, beside me is the manager for volunteers and partnerships, Monique Armstrong Sims. So I'm going to let her speak to that because she does handle that for the district.
Good evening. So, excellent question. We are looking for volunteers for a number of things. So in the spring, we had our first volunteer appreciation event where we were celebrating volunteers from across the city. And we talked about creating the ambassador program, which is something I want to talk to Mr. Kane as well as folks from TDP about, because we are looking to have those cohorts of families and parents who across the city can organize to help educate parents in their respective communities about city schools policies and procedures, particularly school family council, and how to be an organized parent group and things like that. So we do have opportunities to create these organizations just like this to go around and talk about these particular things. The other thing is we host a series of events throughout the year, and so we need volunteers always to help us with things like that. One thing in particular is the back to school night. So you're on this table, there's a bright green neon colored flyer. That's an invitation for you to be a part of the back to school night, and we need volunteers to support that event on September 17th. So we need volunteers for events, we need them to be ambassadors in our community, and then through our office, we just have initiatives throughout the year that we need volunteers to speak on and sit on particular panels for. So those are the kind of things we're looking for people to do.
Cool. We have a first question. It's actually from my wife, right? I must have missed something throughout this presentation. So yeah, this is how it goes in our house. If my school does not have a school family council, then what's the first step to getting one? That's a good question, actually, Angel. Our friends at Mount Royal are going through this right now where they don't have a school family council. They have a vacancy in their principal, right? Or they have an interim principal. The first step is really, and this may sound, this is serious. This is what you have to do. You need to go to your principal and keep knocking on the door saying we need a school family council. If that does not work, you call the engagement office and say, hey, my school does not have a school family council. Can you please help us get one? That's where it stopped for us. When our principal didn't respond to us, the engagement office came in with everybody, set everybody down, and went over how to establish a school family council, went through the rules, and also we did for the first 2 meetings and make sure we got it done. So if your principal's not been responsive, get in contact with the engagement office because they will make sure it get done. Because guess what? It's school policy. You have to have a school family council at your school. All right. We have some more awesome questions. I'm curious about people's experience with organizing parents with IEPs. Anybody want to? IEPs, organizing with parents who have children with IEPs.
It's not totally my area, but one of the first places to go would be to the Office of Special Education. What's the actual title for special ed?
Special education certificate
No, I'm saying to go to district and go to the Office of Special Education. They have a family community room with lots of information and lots of resources for parents who have kids with special needs, or differentiated needs, I should say. And then there are Mondays, I think the second Monday of the week, of the month, I'm sorry, there's CPAC meetings, and that is the advisory board. That's what Keisha was saying, the Special Education Advisory Board for Baltimore City Schools. And they specifically have a relationship with the office at North Avenue, and they can, they're really great at helping parents advocate for their children who have differentiated needs, and helping you to navigate the office at North Avenue. So I would say those are the two first steps to make if you have IEP problems.
And I will just say briefly that we dipped our toe into IEP issues over, I guess, in the spring. And I think we realized, oh, this is huge. So I know that we are, as an organization, as Teachers Democracy Project, we know that there's a huge body of stuff to think about there. And so I can't remember who wrote the question down now, but if you are interested in following up on that conversation, we're looking at like, how can we be helpful in terms of the organizing piece. I think there are lots of folks providing services. So we should let you talk about the services that are available. I think we are trying to figure out what is the space where parents come together if those spaces are not working for them.
Hi, good evening. I'm Charvette Barfield. I work at the Parents' Place in Maryland. I am a parent educator. I also wanted to mention that through the Parent Community Advisory Board, there are 3 appointed persons on the PCAB as well that represent the families who have special needs in Baltimore City schools. So that is another place to go to, and they have meetings set up on a schedule for maybe 2 times a month. And they have a relationship with the School Board of Commissioners. But also at the Parents' Place, we are the Parent Information Training Center for the state of Maryland, and we work with families with special health care issues as well as special needs.
So these guys will go with you to an IEP meeting and really coach you. So if you need that kind of hands.
So that reminds me, and I was thinking of it right as you were handed the microphone. So the 3 people who are for special ed on Parent and Community Advisory Board are folks appointed by Disability Rights Maryland. And that is a nonprofit organization that's been here in Maryland, and really it's in Baltimore City for many, many years. And they're a place you would also go. You could start at Disability Rights Maryland also, but they are especially there if you have legal needs, because a lot of times special ed folks definitely have legal needs and don't have funds for those legal needs. So that would be a place to go for that. And then they have, again, resources and great folks there that can help you find other folks that are gathering together and organizing, like Teachers Democracy Project or PCAB or CCAC and all that great stuff.
We have another question that I guess we did not go over. It's literally, what is PCAB? So you have a handout here. I'm not sure how many people saw it. It says Parent Engagement in School. If you don't have it, let me know. I can make sure you get one. And so if you, I think it's the 5th bullet, the second one from the bottom. Long story short, summary, it's the state requires that PCAB exists inside of our schools. And what we do is literally it's supposed to be an advisory board for the School Board of Commissioners, the CEO, around policy issues. In the past, and one of the reasons I got involved with PCAB is how do we really get PCAB out to parents and let them know we're here, and really solicit that type of feedback. in the interview, I pointed it out to the interview panel at the time, like how do we really let people know PCAB is here and how can they best utilize PCAB. And so we had our first meeting last week, and one of the things we talked about was like really engaging parents across the district, being more visible, not just having that policy role, but being more visible as far as organizing and being in the schools so parents know that we're there. Let me make sure I answered a whole question. And then we talked about meeting fatigue and keeping volunteers from burning out. I would be lying if I stood here and told you that we have a 20-member PTO. Now we operate as if we have 100 members on our PTO board. Well, we operate that way, but there's literally maybe 5 people who are consistently involved in organizing efforts with PTO. And so when you talk about like how do we prevent burnout, how do we prevent fatigue, that's the hard one. The honest to God answer, the honest answer that I've come up with is that what like really inspires me and my wife to keep going is that we really believe that if no one else does this work, that who's gonna do it? So that's what keeps us going. And I know it's like not the best answer, but for us it's like if we can go to another school, but who is looking out for the other 600 kids at our school to make sure they have a better chance? So that's not the good answer, but it's the only answer I have.
I could just put in my 2 cents about that. People don't like to just come to meetings to just go to a meeting. People, if somebody has something to do, you have a project, you have a role in that project, that's how you're going to keep people engaged. So, I think that, thinking about that in terms of the organization. And then when you have issues where you need people to speak out and speak up, you've got that network to call on, but people feel valued because they did something, they're connected. You find out what their talents are, what their interests, and that kind of thing. Yeah, and I'll add to that while I say we have 5 members who are actively involved, we have like almost 300 people who are on our email list. So when we send an email out and nobody responds, but when we see people, they like, oh, I saw the last email, we saw the issues coming up. Or for example, last year we had a fall festival and literally nobody responded that they were coming, but had like almost 200 people at the event. Like people are paying attention to what's going on, but they are not gonna come to every meeting. But when you have projects, so we have volunteers who don't come to meetings, but if we need a flyer made, they make a flyer. If we need a Facebook event made, they make a Facebook event. So like she said, definitely assigning people jobs and maybe assigning them tasks throughout the year or committees or, if we have an annual event, they could be part of to help plan. And how to assign these responsibilities and make sure they're on the same page. For us, it's about vision, like what are our goals for the school year? And for us to make our goals, we have to meet with the principal to make sure that our goals are in line with the principal's goals. Because if they're not, the principal will shut you down, all right? And won't have an issue with doing so. And so it will create a really divisive environment to where nothing's getting done and everybody dislikes each other. So really talking and coordinating with your principal around what the goals of the school are. So for our school, I know we're having a big push on, obviously the district is on reading, right? So we partnered with our YMCA partners. They sent us hundreds of books that are in my dining room right now. So we're gonna start a book club at Waverly, right? Then we got a partnership with, I'm not gonna tell you all our partnerships, but I'm not gonna steal them either, right? But no, you partner with the community people and you figure out how do you align your goals with the principal goals and vice versa, right? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. When I say shut you down, what do I mean? Am I being literal? Am I being facetious? And I'll get to that like literally on the 2 more questions. I'll talk about it now for a second. So shut you down. I don't mean that the principal is going to say. The principal may not know. The principal, in our experience, is at Waverly. Even right now, we had a conversation today where a community partner that the principal wasn't aware of who that partner was. The community wants this as a well-known community stakeholder. We believe in it as parents. The community believe in it. But the principal wasn't familiar with that organization and would not sign off on it until she met with the organization. They met at 1 o'clock. At 1:45, we got this big email about how excited she is about this partnership.
And so when I say shut it down, I mean, we started talking about this project 2 months ago. And so my point is that if we're not in line and talk and really our communication is fluid, it can really stall projects. I shouldn't say shut it down, but stall projects, or in some situations it can discourage people from continuing. And so if we didn't keep pushing, it could have really turned some other people off, and that project would have ended. So when I say shut down, I don't mean literal, but I mean we had to be on the same page with the school and the parents. So while serving on PCAB, can you be mindful to keep information from the district to the schools, right? Did I get that right? I wholeheartedly believe in that. Like, how do we make sure that parents in schools know what's happening at district? The more they know, the more we can get done, the more we can organize. And so it's a big push. The engagement office, people I talk to know that my biggest concern is transparency. How are we building out communication processes between the district and schools so we can best get information out to parents to solicit feedback?
So going out and being visible to the schools and to the parents, so that you can get that info instead of getting the district initiatives or policies and you guys go over. You guys are actually pushing in some of the things that you're working on grassroots efforts to the district so that you can kind of match and meet and build that collaboration.
You gotta be family from somewhere, because that's all I promote is like, how do we take feedback? You don't want to hear from Joe Kane. Joe Kane got involved in PTO for very selfish reasons, making sure my children were taken care of, right? But how do we make sure that we have the voice of all parents represented and not have all kids in uniforms unable to eat candy and like doing what Joe Kane wants them to do, So my biggest push has always been, how do we take PCAB and really push out and solicit that information? How do we hold meetings like this? How do we go into other schools? What are we doing to really bridge that gap of communication between the community, parents at large? Who's Ms. Singleton? Oh yes, yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, definitely keeping that communication. And she's actually the cool for our school.
You guys know knowledge of what's in the schools itself instead of the individual schools trying to figure out the contact one another. You got a parent and community engagement office that has contact, or at least know someone liaison in those schools and kind of put those things together.
So we're going to talk about that umbrella in a second. So can you talk about the kinds of hurdles the school put up to stop parent participation, and what did what do we do? This is a good question. So I paint this rosy picture of how we just, marched across the Edmonds Pettus Bridge and we got it done, right? There was a lot of pushback from people who felt as though we were overstepping our boundaries. Like, we were really pushing back and saying, hey, this is unacceptable. This is what policy says. You're not adhering to policy, and this is how we want you to conform to policy, right? And so it created a very tense situation to where we stopped out the principle that I had this disdain for, right? Stop answering emails. Stop making public appearances. We'll come to work and go in his office and shut the door. When I come to the school, wouldn't even talk to parents, talk to me more or less. And so we faced all type of hurdles and issues. The one thing that kept us going was that we were rooted in policy and not emotion. And so when we were talking and going to the school board or talking to the district, we were referencing not our feelings about how we felt about this man not answering the phone, but we were referencing policy about how do you communicate with parents and community? How do you respond to emails? We were really communicating policy and how it wasn't being adhered to. And so if I had to give any type of advice around how do you get over those obstacles, number one, it would really root yourself with the organization, whether it's Teachers Democracy Project, and really team up with, like, how do you familiarize yourself with policy inside the schools so you can be best equipped to really overcome those hurdles. And then the second thing is be persistent. Like, understand that you are your child's best advocate, right? And that there's nobody going to stop me from overcoming this obstacle. And so you take those two things combined, they have an uphill battle. And I'm not saying in the adversarial tone, it's definitely in the tone of how do we come on the same page? How do we get on the same page to make sure that we both are serving what's best for our children? And the last question I have here is, how do you organize fundraising events, and how do you spend it? What do we mean by spend it? Spend the money? Anybody ask a question? Organize fundraising events? Well, for us, fundraising has literally been at the bottom of our goals. Everybody, that's probably why I got lost the last election of a PTO president. I had made a pilot, like I didn't want to do any fundraising. I mean, we may do some organizing efforts to get some tools and resources for teachers, but I felt as though the systemic issues in our school were way more important than a bake sale fundraiser. However, my wife is a big fundraiser. So we have, in the first week of school, Joe Corby's is coming in with their pamphlets, right? So when they come to school, they're gonna have the pamphlets, they can order their Joe Corby's pizza, because the principal has a goal to get new computers for students in the school. So we coordinate our fundraising efforts in line with what the principal goals are. So the teacher, our principal, how many computers she want? She gave you a dollar amount. So we have a dollar amount to raise, and you can go to paypal.com/WaverlyPTO to donate. But we coordinate our fundraising goals around what the principal's initiatives are. And that way, guess who's our best advocate in pushing out to all the parents is the principal. So when we're doing our Joe Corby's fundraiser, we're doing our cookie fundraiser, it's not just me standing outside handing the flyers out, but the principal using her megaphone to make sure and really encouraging students to take part of that process. Yeah. Right here. Where can I find policies for the family and community engagement office? Anybody here familiar with board docs? Anybody know what board docs is? Trish, you want to educate us on board docs?
So I didn't introduce myself. I'm Trish Garcia-Pilla, and I just stepped down from being the Parent and Community Advisory Board Chair, but I still have one more year left on PCAB. And our bylaws, we have bylaws that say that I have to stay on regardless for a year as an advisor to the new chair for continuity. So I'm very familiar with board docs, and it is not a really easy website to navigate. It's kind of tough. So I just want giving that little caveat there. But it is the database basically that North Avenue District Office, whatever you want to call it, uses to house policies for the Baltimore City School District. And you can find it on the Baltimore City Schools website. So if you go to Baltimore City Schools website on your phone, which I'm usually doing myself, they actually have it as one of the first things listed right there on the website that comes up for a phone when you're doing a mobile search. I'm not sure if that's the case if you look for it on like a desktop. Because the desktop is like fancy and there's all kinds of stuff rolling. But if you just click on the school board tab, you'll find board docs quickly. If you just put board docs into the search engine part, it's going to take you to the school board tab basically, and you have to scroll down and look for it on that tab anyway. Yes?
I was just going to ask another question.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted, that will take you, that link, you have to click on it, and it's going to then take you to a separate database. It's a whole new web page, and that's board docs. Do you want me to dig deeper into that? Because and there's different tabs up there that'll say board meetings, policies, and a couple other things. And you just have to search around. And if you can't find something, you can always email PCAB, and we're happy to help you find the policy if you can't find it. Or the engagement office will help you find the information that you need. And you can reach us at pcab@bcpsk12.md.us.
or you can reach us on Facebook because we have a Facebook page and a bunch of us are admins on there. We try to answer the questions like as soon as they come in on the PCAB Facebook page.
Can I say something? Board docs. Little tidbit for you. The school district pays $60,000 a year to an organization to buy the rights to use this management information system. There are other school boards in the state of Maryland that also pay, and the cost is based on the enrollment of the district. Okay. When I first came back, I thought it was outrageous because the group that offers this service to us is MABE, and that's the Maryland Association of Boards. And they go down to Annapolis and advocate for some of the stupidest stuff I have ever heard of in some instances. And so I'm trying to figure out why we're supporting that organization. Now I will share with you that there are school districts who have stopped using their product because of the way they advocate for obnoxiously foul kinds of policy changes in Annapolis, okay? And so I am a very vocal one against this company and against spending $60,000 every year to renew the membership of Baltimore City with MABE. So that's something that appears on the school board agenda annually to renew, and I always send them a letter and say, I object, I oppose this. On board docs itself, it not only has policies, but it lists the agendas for every meeting, right? Tomorrow night's school board meeting agenda, I just printed off before I left home, right? Anybody wants to take a look at what's on the agenda, it includes policies, it includes procurement actions. They are renewing the Teach for America contract tomorrow. They're renewing the Ingenuity program tomorrow. They're renewing the Judy Centers tomorrow. So there are good things on the agenda. And when we talk about parent power, okay, you need to be aware of what they're going to be voting on tomorrow, right? Because there are some things that you might not like. Because there's often...
Describe public comment.
Right. The other thing is, on the agenda, they give 10 people 3 minutes to make public comments. 10 people, 3 minutes, right? And you have to come before the meeting. Sign-up period starts at 4:30. The meeting begins at 5, okay? And usually if there are controversial items on the agenda, if you're not there by 4:40, you won't get signed up. But that is one opportunity for the general public, because they call it general public comments, to sign up to share your views. It's always important to review the agenda, though, because you're going to talk before they look at this agenda, right? And so if you have some objections to something before they vote, right, you need to say it in your public comments. Now, me personally, the agenda comes out on Saturday before the Tuesday meeting. Got that? Saturday before the Tuesday meeting. I review it Sunday. So that Monday, they got an email from me with my comments prior to the Tuesday meeting. For those of you who don't know, I'm Kim Trueheart, and I just love our babies.
So I just want to add that the special groups or specially recognized groups get 5 minutes before those 10 people with 3 minutes each. PCAB is one of those specially recognized groups, and we do take our 5 minutes every single board meeting. And if, say, everybody in this room felt a certain way about something on that agenda, and we got emails, messages from all of you, we would use part of our 5 minutes to talk about those things also. So just so there's that extra time and attention to whatever the issues are.
Hey Joe, Karen DeKemp from Strong City, Baltimore. So I had the opportunity to work a little bit with Joe at Waverly, and I just wanted to say that Joe and Angel, what you all do is really, really masterful because you both schooled yourselves on the policies, and you were able to cite those in instances where you were getting pushback from school staff. I mean, I remember, a school family council meeting that the faculty chair decided to start 15 minutes early before any of the parents showed up. So there was some really hard organizing. So what you guys did masterfully and still do is you know your stuff, and then you all did the organizing. You all did that kind of community organizing to create, to listen to a whole lot of people, the parents, the community, the teachers, students, and create that manifesto. And I think that those are like two of the hallmarks of great parent power organizing. So I just wanted to, shout out to you guys, and everything you all do is with a smile on your face. And it's just, to me, so impressive to see what you all are able to accomplish at the school. So kudos and thank you.
So I just, for a second, when I think, so we've got a description of PTOs and PTAs, and those are very much about, and school family councils, those are very much about how you organize at the school level. You've got this description of PCAB and CCAB or CCAB? CCAB. So those are places to come together on a citywide basis. I think I just want to always be thinking about, there are the systems that exist for parents, and then there's the stuff that doesn't exist for parents, that you need to chart your territory yourselves. And so I just want to, as we keep learning about the systems, sometimes it can feel like, oh, well, everything's there that you need. And yet, it doesn't always work that way. So I just want to keep reminding you, keep thinking about your questions. Like, where are you getting stuck in what you want to see for your school? And or your child, and how can this group help you?
Good evening, I'm Aize Sabater, and I'm a graduate student at Morgan State University. And to Ms. Trueheart's point, in terms of folk who are putting stuff in legislation in Annapolis, I was blessed to be in Annapolis with Ms. Trueheart a few weeks ago, and they have 4 working groups for this statewide Kerwin Commission that's rejiggering funding for schools across the state. They have 4 different working groups. In one working group where parental engagement or parental involvement, family engagement, whatever you want to call it, would be figured in as the at-risk working group. In the at-risk working group, the only area where they really spell out family engagement is in the English language learners. And in that section, they talk of giving funding for a family liaison. And so based on my research, I'm clear. So based on that concern that I had, that it was really very narrow, the way that they're looking to figure in family engagement, I actually made a comment expressing my concern. And what I'm asking for, if folk are interested in expressing parent power on a statewide level, then join me in trying to push to get a recommendation that maybe 1% of this funding that they're talking about to go toward family engagement, where again, it's very specific things, but unless you put money towards it and put an evaluative mechanism, then you won't really have funding to go for family engagement on a statewide level. And the way that they have it, they're just looking to have family translation services is where they're looking to put, some money. And so again, if that is of interest to you, there's still a few more months that we could actually push hard to have these recommendations in around family engagement getting funding. and having some evaluative mechanism to make sure that parent power is funded. And in my experiences, it's good to have family engagement as a function of what schools are doing, but it's even better to have a third party that is holding schools accountable and is not on the school's agenda. So if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know, and let's go down to Annapolis and lobby to get that in the legislation.
Raise your hand if you're interested in that. Oh.
Yeah.
Just a point of information, if your schedule permits, Tom Hall is going to interview Dr. Kerwin tomorrow at noon, from noon to 1 p.m. on WYPR 88.1, and I'm sure you can listen to it afterwards too, if you can't listen at noon tomorrow. So if you want to learn more about Kerwin or hear what's an update, that would be one way to do it.
What I'd like to just expound upon what Rebecca was saying, and I think Joe said this also. Like, if you really want change, you have to go make it and not sit around and wait. I came to PCAB and I was very unhappy with what I found. And so it was, do I quit this because this is baloney, like nothing's happening here? Or do I take it over and change it? And I decided to stay and take it over and change it and go to every single board meeting and represent, because PCAB wasn't doing that before. And I think the 2 years that I was chair, I attracted people like Joe, attracted people like Tyrone to come and be on PCAB too. So now I think PCAB has this amazing new board of really active parents and community members. And it has been that way before in the past. I'm not saying I made it that way, because it never was that way, because I saw some heads bobbing over there. I know it was amazing before, but when I went, it had really kind of taken a downturn. And so, again, just back to Rebecca, you have to go and do it. Joe and Angelique went and did it at Waverly. And that's the important part of this whole thing, is if you have an idea and you think something needs to be some sort of way, go make it that way.
So I just want to interject one more thing again. So back in, I guess last winter, a group of us, parents, traveled to New York City, and we were learning about the parent power structures in New York City. And New York is a totally different animal than Baltimore, so it's not comparable. But they had multiple tiers of ways that parents came together across schools. So they have a neighborhood. There's like a team of parents that come together across that neighborhood. So schools have their own little, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a local school council. And then there's another tier of, so if you're in this borough and you're in this borough and this borough, then there's that team of parents that come together. So what it made me realize is that in Baltimore we have PCAB, but we don't necessarily have a group of parents that are poised to advocate. So PCAB exists as a container, and I think Tricia's right, it could be even more activated. And I know Joseph's and Tyrone are going to do that. So what we're also looking at doing at TDP is creating a parent body that is adjacent to PCAB, so that some people may also be in PCAB. We're thinking of a parent body that functions a little bit more like that entity that communicates with schools about what are the concerns that are showing up for you in schools. What do you wish the board would be advocating for at the board level or at the district? What needs to be happening differently at the district level to support whatever's happening in your school? So it's a little bit more of a push-in approach as opposed to like we receive the policy from the district and we comment on it. So that's kind of when you look at that sheet, this idea of a parent power team. We're going to try this out and see if we can create a model for what it would look like for parents to be connecting to schools across the city to see what the issues are, to then organize around them at a citywide level. Not to redo what people are already doing, and I know BEC does powerful organizing work as well.
And just to follow up with that, when we talked about this earlier summer or spring, me and Rebecca had this conversation. It was mind blowing that we were on the same page. Like, how do we really create this network of parents? where they are the ones being advocates for themselves, not tied to an organization, but really can really stand up and say, hey, this is happening in Cherry Hill, but we only have 5 community, 5 people at our PTO meetings. How can we really organize to have 200 people behind us? And I think creating that network that she's referring to could be useful to really getting out, to really energizing the parent movement in Baltimore. Because it's not really hard. You just got to really take the time to really energize people to get involved.
I just wanted to quickly mention that, so part of the reason I asked the question about special education is that I have found additional challenge in reaching out to parents of kids with IEPs because it's not something that you readily know and is not, information that, for example, a school would share with you. And so that's been a challenge, so that's probably why I'm asking about that and curious to have, or interested to have more of that conversation. But I also just wanted to announce that if you do have a child, and you know someone who has a child that is on an IEP or does receive special education services, whether in infants and toddlers or at the school level, I started a Facebook group just called the Baltimore City Special Education Parent Group, just so that people can ask questions and be a resource for each other. But I think that's the challenge, to be organizing in schools when you don't really know who those parents are. So.
Yeah. Can I say something today? So yeah, I think, and one of the reasons I heard your question, one of the things I've learned in this process is really staying in my lane, right? Because I wouldn't. However, I think that's important. How do we really build out, the parents who have children with IEPs? How do we build out different special groups or not special, but different groups of parents with different needs, different concerns? How do we build those out? And so, like the Baltimore City Kids Facebook group has been amazing. So we look forward to really empowering that group to really connecting those parents, And I think that's the idea, the same effort and energy put into those Facebook groups. If we could put that in real life, I promise you we would have helicopter pads on every school in Baltimore City,
So,
I just wanted to add one thing about public comment at the school board meetings and board docs. One good thing about arriving there early and signing up and being on the list of 10 is that what you say goes into the minutes for the meeting and gets put in the board docs. So, like, a lot of times I'm very nervous about going to speak, but when I read it later in the board docs, I'm like, oh, that sounded pretty good. And now it's here, like, in writing, and you can refer to it, like, 2 years later, be like, 2 years ago we spoke out about school performance measures and how that was a bad idea, and why are we still doing it. But I guess my advice for speaking for public comment is write it down first, because they do time you, 3 minutes, they'll cut you off. So you want to have your points down there so you're not fumbling and wasting time. And then also, a lot of times right after you do your public comment, they'll pull you aside and match you up with people at the district and say like, oh, what were your questions? How can we answer them for you? So it is a way to get kind of special attention to your issue. And then it does become part of the minutes and gets put in board docs, so it's kind of preserved. So I didn't want to say, don't be scared. I'm always scared when I have to go up there, but then I'm proud of myself when I do it.
I have a couple of questions. One is, does the Family Community Engagement Office have a list of either contact people or presidents of school family councils that you can, and do they ever get together and meet as, in groups or in networks? And then the second question is, do you have a monthly bulletin where you could disseminate information to all the school family councils? And I guess there's a sort of corollary question is, I know there's a PTA advisory council, but there doesn't seem to be any way to get to all the PTOs. Is there a list of PTOs and PTO contacts? Because, if an organization that's making a citywide effort, like we were doing last year with the Arts Education Initiative, there would seem to be no way to get this information out system-wide.
so that people knew what was going on and could get involved.
Happy to address that. Great questions. First, is there a list of school family council chairs? We try to maintain a list. It's very difficult unless we have all of those folks entered into what's called the principal's dashboard. So first, let me just back up. Not all schools have active school family councils. A lot of schools may even just come up with a school family council and put people in there when it's like Mr. Kane says, principal selection time or it's budget meeting time. So they may not have been meeting regularly. Our office is working very hard to to change that by providing more professional development around school family council. So we are developing this school year. We've actually started like a prototype for ongoing counseling available for school family council chairs. So it's our job as family and community engagement specialists to make sure we're working with all of our schools that we support to make sure that they have an active council, and then once they do, then of course we can maintain the list of the chairs. We do want to have ongoing communication. That's exactly what we've been working on this summer, so that every month or however often we're pushing information out, it will be to those school family council chairs. Right now, this past year, we were offering school family council training, but it was going to the leads, family and community engagement leads at schools, and sometimes that would be a school family council chair, and they send it, but not necessarily were we targeting the chairs. We're doing that in this school year. Monthly bulletin, that's on my mind. I want to do like a newsletter, and so yes, that's something that we're talking about. One of the other things we're doing this school year from the district office to help schools promote school family councils, we're going to provide marketing branded materials that a school can go in and put your school name in, but something that can be made into posters and flyers, a template, so that schools have more support with regard to marketing your school family councils. And so as we're thinking about that, those will be opportunities for us to come up with how we're reaching these groups in a regular way and for ongoing communication. And PTOs, is there a list? No, ma'am, we don't have a list of PTOs in the schools. We do ask for that from our school, but again, as we're working with, as we support our school, supporting our schools, the family and community engagement specialists will be working to identify where that support is needed. That's also a training that we're developing because there's such a need. That question, what's a PTO versus a PTA? Do I have to have an organized parent group? Some folks think the organized parent group is the school family council. So we've learned that these are areas of need that we've identified, and there will be training. I'm actually, because I get that so often, I'm going to work on a PTO organized parent group training because it's needed. And so that's where we are. We know that's what we need to be doing.
So you mentioned that there will be school family council training. I was wondering if there could be training for not just the chairs, but for all of the members on the school family council. So that was the first part. The second thing I wanted to ask or request is that when you do have the school family councils or the organized parent groups or just community as a whole, there are separate trainings for the school staff and administrators, and then there's like a community feedback section for families and community. And sometimes, like while the information may be the same, the translations could be different because one group translates it one way, and generally how it's implemented is however the school side interprets it. So I just wanted to request that there be some kind of combined training so that everyone is in the same room and able to hear like the questions and feedback and so forth, so that clarity can be done for everyone as a whole. So then the next thing I wanted to ask is there is a PTA rep in the district office, but how can a PTO, is there someone, like a point of contact for PTOs to be able to have that same kind of support? And, sorry, this is kind of packed. And when is the promotional information going to be made available for the school family council? Because I know our school, like I had to create a flyer with all the information. So that would be good to know. Like, is it going to be made available for this school year?
Okay, well, first, I can say check for that. There is a workshop or training that we do that is for school family council, that is actually for everyone. Your school family council members, the staff, parents are invited. That's the one we did at Waverly at the beginning of last year. That was open. Now, hopefully, you want everybody to attend. You want everyone, all of those different groups to be able to attend. You remember the training, Mr. Kane?
I remember the training. Let me not disagree. We had a training at Waverly for our school community. That where everybody was in the room and you facilitated.
I facilitated it, yes.
The training, yes.
So my point is that, yes, I agree. Everybody needs to be in the room to hear the same information and to be able to make sure everybody is aligned with why a school family council, how a school family council should work. Now, certainly that training, we have the ability to dive deeper and to go into it. If you are brand new and you've never developed bylaws, we can support you. But yes, that's done. I agree with you. Everybody in the room. PTO. You are asking, is it possible to have a point of contact like the Deb Demery, who was the PTA person? When they started talking about the differences between a PTA and a PTO, that's one of the main differences, that a PTA, you're paying into a national organization, you're paying dues, you get these services and supports, and that's a Deb Demery. That's the PTA person. PTOs are organic. They're organized parent groups that take many, there's no one person that's going to then be responsible for PTOs, because those are going to look different, because those are your organized parent groups. It might be one school has an organized parent group that's their parents, teachers, staff. You might have another school that's just all parents. You may have one that makes sure they have the parent-teacher-student association at your high schools. So there's not one body that's overseeing organized parent groups like there is for PTA. That's the difference, but certainly you still have your family and community engagement specialists who will support your organized parent groups in all the schools. So reach out to the engagement office. You guys know who your specialist is if you're at Waverly. But so there's certainly a list of folks that are available to support and provide specific training. If we don't have it, we'll develop it to be able to address your needs. Okay?
Would you find that there may be any hesitation on the part of teachers to be involved in any activity or event that you might get pushback because they may have a fear for some type of retribution or repercussions being involved in something that's not has the buy-in of the administration, i.e. principal or the school board in North Avenue? Do you think that might be a point of concern for some teachers?
So we have a teacher in the room, walk over to her. But we've never invited our teachers to do anything that we thought would compromise their jobs. But I'll let you get insight.
As a teacher who did try to organize change at her school and receive pushback from administration, I could say it would have been a lot stronger if we had parents involved with us, because teachers get evaluated by the administrators and it goes into our evaluation and our salary, and we can get surplus, moved around, put on a PIP, and so lots of things can happen to teachers, but parents can't fire a parent, can't get rid of a parent, and it would be much stronger if it was parents and teachers together. That would be my advice, is to strengthen the message by having it come from parents and teachers.
I was on a conference call this afternoon, and one of the issues that
they're trying to organize nationally around is divestment of teacher pensions out of the prison industrial complex, okay, out of private jails. Now, if we offer teachers something that could benefit them by joining us, that may be one way to get more of them involved. If we tell them, well, we're going to stand up for you to get your pension money out of this foul business, you know, and there may be some empathy there. Or, you know, around the issues that Natalia talked about teacher evaluations. You know, what do we want for teachers, and is it the same thing that they want? And how do we show up for them the same way we're asking them to show up for our children? And so we have to be creative, I think, in coming up with those kinds of draws to get them to come and align with us.
I was basically gonna say something similar to what Kim just said. When I was a PTA president at an elementary school, that's basically what we did. We also advocated, whether it was for, with the principal or with district, we advocated for the teachers as much as for parents and students, and that's how we really pulled teachers in. I probably was really lucky where I was a PTA president because the principal at that time was really into working with the PTA. And so the principal also helped, you know, and said, hey teachers, here's something, you know, really, this is really important to me as your boss, that you be part of the PTA.